Hello and welcome to the 17th webinar in 12D's Industry Solutions webinar series. My name is Lisa Stewart and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator at 12D Solutions. Before we begin, I must just apologise in advance because we've been experiencing some internet delays today, so this may affect the broadcasts. Please bear with us if that's the case. It will mostly, I think, affect the visuals. I think we'll get some flashing of the data on the screen, so please be aware of that when you're watching it. Our Industry Solutions webinars are designed to provide insights into overcoming challenges in an evolving industry in more effective and efficient ways. We'll continue to run these webinars regularly and record them for posting on our YouTube channel and website. Our first 16 webinars from this Industry Solutions series, as well as the first 11 webinars from our training series, are available online if you missed those. During this live presentation, you'll be able to type your questions along the way, and we'll answer as many as possible throughout the webinar. At the end, I'll also read out some of your questions to the presenter if there's time and if the internet allows. Today's webinar, presented by Senior Surveyor Mark Ferguson of Extra Dimension Solutions, will illustrate the use of 12D model with ePlan to prepare and draft linen plans for LPI Lodgement. ePlan is a way of electronically capturing boundary information into a LandXML format. 12D ePlan New South Wales is based on an XML schema created by Land and Property Information. This means all vendors and surveyors can download the XML schema from their website. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Lisa, for that introduction. Okay, so today I'm going to run through 12D's new ePlan module. Now this module is currently available in version 12 and also currently in version 11 of 12D model software. Now I'm going to switch between PowerPoint and also a 12D model project, so it's not going to be death by PowerPoint. I will demonstrate this live inside 12D model. So to start off with, what is ePlan? Now basically ePlan is a way to electronically capture boundary information and gather all the elements in that, so all your observations, points, parcel, which are your lots, and capture that in a Land XML format. So this format is created by the LPI, so there is a schema that contains everything in this format, and this is also open source format, so any software vendor can get this format and be able to produce these files. So what does basically a Land XML file look like? So you can see here on the PowerPoint this is an example of a Land XML file, but I'll go one step better than this and I'll pull up my 12D project and I'll quickly open up an XML file that I'll import into my 12D model project for this demonstration. So I'll double click on this XML file, and just to note, this XML file here is from the LPI, so this is a file that currently works in their system. So I'll just double click on it. So this automatically then opens it up in Internet Explorer, and you can see here basically this Land XML file contains all the information. It has all the metadata information about the coordinate system, the version, even the software that you use. It will even output that into the Land XML file. But then further down, then you've got all this your point information. So you've got CG points, which I'll explain later what a CG point is. And if we keep scrolling down, we've then got our parcel information. So that contains the area, the type of parcel, and the parcel name. So it's got all that parcel metadata, which, remember, your parcels are your lots. And again, I'll keep scrolling down. Then we've got our line information, and the line information also contains all the curves. So if you've got any arcs, it will also have the radius and the points between. So you can see the file contains a lot of information, and this all goes into the LPI's database. It even contains all your administrative area information, so what parish, what county that this DP is in. And then there's also all our observations. So our observations are our bearings and distances between 2 points. Okay, so I'll just close that down. So that's, now that you've basically got the gist of what an ePlan XML file looks like, the next slide basically just shows us the circle of life. So this is basically the circle of the procedures of, basically you go out, you do the survey, you use a software like 12d to produce a LandXML file, you then send that through here to the LPI, which gets the LandXML file and also create a TIFF image, and then they store that in their database, and then when you go out and do another job and you're working near an area that has other DPs nearby, you can search that database and grab those XML files and then import the existing DP information into 12d model. Again, this picture here was taken from the LPI website, I think. So the next slide here just basically just describes some of the information in regards to ePlan. So if you want to find out more information on ePlan, you can go to this link here, and that will give you some more information where you can download things like the PDF of the XML recipe, and you can even get the schema files. Alright, so how does ePlan fit into your current 12d survey workflows? So you can still go about and use your same methods. Now you've got to remember that ePlan is purely just for creating these LandXML files that get sent to the LPI. It's not something you'd give to your client. So if your client still wants a drafted linen plan, well then you still have to go about using CAD and create these plans and then basically plot them out and give them to your client. But the advantage of using ePlan is if that's not needed, you can just go out, create these LandXML files, and you are going to save time in the registration process. So that is the biggest benefit of it. And not only that, the LPI are pushing this, and I guess eventually in years to come it might be mandatory to create these LandXML files. So in creating them, you still go out, you can either inside 12d, you can draw in the lots like you normally would. So you could use your traverse function and traverse in the lots. You could also use some of the tools on the survey like the traverse spreadsheet, or design the state lots, and if you want to create your lots, you could create your lots that way. But essentially you were going to go out in the field and you're going to radiate a bunch of marks that are currently on existing DPs, and you're going to put your own marks in. You're going to go out, you're going to radiate all these marks, and then you're going to import this survey data using 12d's survey field file or other methods, and import this into 12d and then create your lots off those marks. So you could do it that way. The advantage of doing it that way is then you have all the data as a superstring, and then you could output it to survey instruments or plot it out for your drafting purposes. There's also the method too, you can actually physically create extra lots and all the data inside the ePlan module. Okay, so how do you create an ePlan model to create this LandXML file? Well, firstly, just to demonstrate this, we'll go through it step by step now. So to create an ePlan model, I'll go up to Survey, Network, ePlan, and as you can see under the ePlan option here, there are a couple of different states. So you've got New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria, and they all have different schemas, and they all do things slightly differently. So if you're working for Queensland, you'd use the Queensland option. If you're going to be doing an ePlan in the state of Victoria, then use the Victorian option. Since this is for the LPI, which is the land and property information in New South Wales here, I'm going to select the New South Wales option. And then this brings up the Create New South Wales ePlan Network panel. So what I need to do here is I need to physically type in an ePlan model, and this will be the model that will contain all the ePlan information. So I simply left click in the model and I type a name in. So for simplicity, I'm just going to give it a model name called ePlan, and just left click out of that cell. Now, any of this grade italic options here means that they're optional, so we don't need to fill them out. So I'm just going to leave them blank. Now, what I will do here is I'll fill out the datum information. So your datum is basically the projection that your skims marks are on. So in New South Wales, it's all MGA. So I'll select MGA. Now the horizontal datum for the LPI New South Wales, they all want it on a local datum. So it's essentially ground measurements. Everything that you capture in the field, they want ground measurements. They're not concerned about you going out and measuring between two SSMs and putting down a comparison of grid distances or anything like that. They just want your ground measurements for everything you do. And the same thing goes for basically any measurement. If it's already on an existing DP in their ePlan database, they don't need it because they got all those measurements on the other DP, so they can source that information. Vertical datum, we'll choose AHD. Zone number, again that's optional, but you could put 56 if you're working in MGA 56. Style, now these styles are basically XML style sets where you can define how the ePlan model looks, so you can actually tweak these files. Now these files are just XML files stored in the 12d program file, so they come shipped with 12d. So there's one called New South Wales Standard, which is what we'll use, and you could actually go into the program files and you could tweak that, and that will display things like lot colors, like boundary, bearing information, how it looks, points, everything like that. Next step is the input file. So this is where we go and browse, and I'm going to select that DP, the one from the LPI that I showed you earlier, this one here. So I'm going to double click on that. Now, once I've done this, to create the ePlan model, I simply go down the bottom and left click on the create icon. Now, once I do that, that will bring up automatically the edit ePlan model toolbar, and this is what we are going to use to go through and populate all the attributes and check our ePlan model. Now, if I go to a plan view called survey here, you can see there's our ePlan model. So it's in that ePlan model that I've called it. And if I zoom in, you can see here it's got all our boundary information, so our bearing and distances, our lot numbers, and our point IDs. It also has dotted line styles, so dashed line styles for the SSM connections. And you'll also notice that the lots, the easements, and the roads are different colours. So that's again all defined in that XML, that New South Wales standard schema. So one thing we can do is the dynamic display settings. So under settings here, we've got an option called display. And this is where we can pick our New South Wales standard style, and you can also toggle and change the styles too. So if you don't like the style that you selected when you created the ePlan model, you can create the style or change it in this panel here. The beautiful thing about this is we can do all sorts of different things. So we can actually turn points on and off. So there, once I refresh, you can't see the corner points anymore. And now they come back on. We could also toggle on and off the observations. So the observations are our bearing and distances. And now they're gone. we could turn off our parcels, which are our lots. And now you can see the line work a bit clearer. There's also a really neat feature is the dynamic pan. So if I toggle on the dynamic pan, now whenever I select a point, and you'll see this later, whenever I select the point using the network tree or the info panel, it will automatically center that point to the middle of the view. So that's a very handy feature there. So I'll just finish this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run through the ePlan toolbar from left to right and just go through basically all the options and give you a rundown of what they do and how to use them. So if I hover my cursor over, we'll work our way across the toolbar from left to right. So if I start at the left here, you can see the first option is to do with points. So points are your vertices. So we can do a number of things here. We can physically add a point in by clicking on the screen. We can also import points. So what the import point option does is if we click on this, we can choose basically existing models in 12D, so existing superstrings in 12D. So you've got to be aware too is when you create this ePlan model, if I do a string inquire and F2 on any of the line work, you can see that the type is it's not a superstring, it's got its new type called a survey network. Now this is a new feature just for ePlan, and it's also similar to the least square stuff. It's essentially a points based system or model inside the 12D, and you know 12D model is string based, so it's a unique feature, and they've made this points based because, as you know, when you have a point and you have a lot with 4 segments going into it, you can have 4 points there at that corner. And the unique feature about this ePlan model is that when you import lot data, as shown here on the panel, they've got this point tolerance in there. And you can specify a point tolerance, and any number of points within that tolerance, it will delete them all and keep 1. So extremely handy for corners when you have 4 common points at the one location and you only need 1. And that is what the ePlan needs. The XML file only wants 1 common point, it doesn't want 4. So that's why we've got this point tolerance in there. So you could choose the data to import, you could choose 1 model, or if you had multiple different models. So for example, you might have drafted up using superstrings and you have a model, one called for your skims data that you've punched in. You might have another one for your radiations that you've gone out in the field, so your survey model that you've gone out. And then you might have another model where you've punched existing DPs in. So you might have multiple different models. In that case, you could even still use a view and just import everything on that one view. So turn all the models on a view and import them into the ePlan model. So as you can see here under the points here, we have point information. So yes or no, do you want to import the points into the ePlan model? And then you just basically go through and everything is on these down arrows. So you just click a down arrow and you cannot just type anything in here. You just select it from the list. Now this makes life a lot easier, and everything you see on the list here is defined in the LPI's Land XML schema. So yeah, you cannot just go and type your own bit of metadata in any of these panels. You need to basically pick the correct option from the list. And that goes with everything you see here. So it does make life a bit easier. You're not just typing in anything off the top of your head. Again, points can have several different things. So points can also be monuments. So you can actually attach monument information to it. So was it found, gone, all that's there. You know, what type of monument was it? So concrete block, drill hole and wing, GI pipe. Basically, the LPI is giving you a whole bunch of pretty much all the solutions that you need. And then the condition of that monument. So you need to fill out, basically if you're going to import the points in, you probably would pick the most common option. And then I'll show you how you can run through later and then quickly change all the other ones that aren't that common option into the correct solution. And then you've got your horizontal position information. So that's obviously your skims data. So what datum it's on, type of mark, where was it from, class and order. Now if I keep going down this point list, after import we can actually edit existing points. So once we import them in, like we've already done, we can actually edit any existing points, and that brings up this edit points panel. So this panel here contains all the coordinate geometry information. So it's got basically all the coordinates of each of the points. Now if I scroll down, you'll notice here we've got A and B. So that's our datum line for this DP. Now we could do things, and we could right click in the status column here for the A and B. So if I right click in here, and I can make that fixed. Now once I make that fixed, it changes from green on the very left here to red. So that's how we know that the point is fixed. So we can actually fix our datum line. You can also type in the point ID by just left clicking, and it lets you type in, and you can also type in an additional description. Now you can see these are optional. That's why most of these are blank. Now just remember, whenever you edit anything in here, you just need to click save. Now the next option after edit points is edit CG points. Now a point contains layers of information. So we've just got our edit points, which had our coordinates information, so our east and northern. And then we've got our CG points. So CG points stands for coordinate geometry points, which is XML language speak. And this is not the actual coordinates this time, but it's all the metadata about the point. So we've got the same point ID, but this time we can right click, and we've got metadata like state. So is it existing or proposed? And then we've got our point surveyed. So what type of point was it? And then again, you can type in the old point ID and a description. So there's our A and B. Remember, click save. Next step, not only are there CG points, but points can also contain monument information. So if I click on the edit monument icon, again you'll see the common point index. Now whenever you click on any of these, you can see it highlights the point. So once I left click on 3, number 3 here has highlighted. Zoom in a bit, you can see it's got this little, it jumps around 3 and 4. Now, this information, if you right click, it brings up all the different options from the LPI schema that you can fill out for that point. So a monument is all your drill hole, again your drill hole and wings, your GI pipes. There's also a lot of optional information, so you can put in the origin DP number in there, a description if it was destroyed. So all that information's in there. Just remember to save that. So the next step for points is our edit reduced horizontal positions. So this is just your skims data. So this is where you can actually right click and you've got all the different options for all your skims marks. There's also a bunch of class and order information too, and right click gives you all the different options you can select. One thing to note, if you're filling out the date, it needs to be in this format here. As you can see up the top. So it's got to have the full year, 4 digits, and then you've got the month and then the day. And then you can delete a point by picking on the screen. So if you want to delete one, you can come in here and just pick it and delete. So the next, we move along this toolbar to the right, the next option are your observations. So if I hold the left button down, we can add an observation in manually by typing in the 2 point IDs. We can import an observation. So again, that brings up the panel where we can pick a model or a view that has multiple models on it, and it also has that point tolerance. Now you'll notice the observation panel also has all our point options on here too. So we can actually import our points and observations at once using this panel. So we can either yes or no, do we want to import these observations? What are the purpose? So is it a boundary, a connection, or a road? And just remember, an observation is the bearing and distance between two existing points. So what type of bearing it is, what type of distance, and then you could actually type in, overwrite the bearing by typing in something else, and also a distance factor. Now, if you want to edit existing observations, you click on the Edit Observations, and if I click on Lines, I can actually go through here, and you'll notice when I click on one, it highlights this line here. So whenever you click on, like with the points, if you click on any of these from or to, it will highlight the line. And you can see the observation, it gives you the 2 points between, and it gives you the bearing and distance between those 2 points. And you can actually right click and the next option are your boundary information. So if you had any boundary information, you can import the boundaries. You can create a boundary manually. And import boundaries just looks similar. All these panels, you sort of get the gist. They do look the same. You can import them from a model or view. And then you got create and import irregular boundaries. Next step are your parcels. So parcels are lots, and again, import parcels. Same data to import methods with the point tolerance, but this panel is pretty much your one-stop shop. So this is the panel where you can import your points, all your monuments, your observations, your boundary, and your lot information all at once. So most people use this panel, and you can import everything at once instead of going through each of these other options, like the observations, the points that I just went through, and do them one by one. You could do them all here at once. So parcel information. Again, you have the yes or no to import that. So you can actually do this, and you might go, no, I don't want to include the horizontal positions, but you want to import everything else. So parcel information, what is the state of the parcel? So is it an adjoining parcel, is it proposed, or is it existing? The class of the parcel, so is it an easement, footprint, administrative area? The use of the parcel, all that information's in there. Again, it's all from the LPI's Land XML schema, and the format. So is it stratum, strata, or standard? So what work is it? What type of DP? All right. Occupations is where you can actually import occupation data, and again, you can edit that in the points option there. Labels, you can move labels and remove labels. Now, labels are only your points, so you can see when I snap onto it, it will only snap onto the points. It won't move the labels for the bearings and distances. But remember, these labels here are not for drafting purposes. This is purely just for your visualization when editing and creating this ePlan model, so you can see what you're doing. Properties. So you've got an edit properties option in here. So clicking on the property editor, I can left click here on points just to highlight it, and I'll just move this out of the way over to the left here. If I then left click on the pick button, it will automatically snap. As I move my cursor, I don't have to press anything, it just automatically snaps to the nearest point. And if I want that point, I just push the middle mouse button to accept it, and it will fill out all the information on that point. And then I can just left click on this again, and I can go to say number 20 over here and accept that. And I'll bring up all the information on point 20. Observations works the same way. You just got to click on pick and it will snap to the nearest line. You can see here it highlights blue, that observation, that line, and I can accept that and it will fill out all the information on that. You can actually left click in some of these cells and you can actually change and edit the information. Alright, we'll finish that. The next option is your network, and this brings up the network tree. Now, this is probably the option that I use the most, purely because, as you can see here, you can expand all the different types of elements in the ePlan model. So it's got all your points, your horizontal positions, your observations, and your parcels, etc. And you can actually work this from the top down methodically so you don't actually miss any points. And you can click on a point here. Now, remember, once you click on it, it should highlight it. So I click on four highlights. Now, if I click out of the way over to say point 17, well, then we can't see this on the view. So remember, under the display settings, we had that dynamic pan. We can turn the dynamic pan on. And now if I go back to the network tree and click on any of these points, it will recenter that. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So that dynamic pan is a very handy feature, and you can actually work through these points methodically, and you can fill out all the metadata information correctly. Because remember, when you import these, unless you're getting it from an XML file like I've already done, it should be correct. But if you're creating this yourself for your own DP, then you're going to have to basically import it in using superstrings from your survey. And you remember, when you import it, you would be using the most common option. So remember, under Parcels, Import, you would just be picking the most common option in here. So you'd have to go through and change the options of these points. So you'd go through and double check all the points and make sure they're correct. And you can quickly just change all that information in here. The good thing about the network tree is it has all the observations, so we can see all the observations, the bearings and distances between each of the line, and again, with the dynamic pan, it recenters it and it highlights that line. Now, each observation also has a segment, and segments are the same thing. It'll have the 2 points, but it's pretty much just what the class of the line is and any curve or radius information, arc information on that line. So you can see here, there's a radius of this curve around the road cul-de-sac here. Parcels. So you can see here our adjoining parcels have no color, but if we click on, say, I think 20 is proposed and it's color red. And if we scroll down, we've got our easement. So there's our easement 1 here. You can see that's an easement, and it's green. And our road parcel. So there's our road. Now, each of these parcels, it will have an area. So it will have the full area down here. And if there's any miscloses in your lot. But then you can also have, so I'll click on one of these lots here. Go back to 20. So we'll also have the areas, but then you can also put in a truncated area up the top, and that's what gets displayed here. So you can actually round up or down your areas. Next option here, we'll go through the settings. So we've already gone through the display settings. Next option is the survey header. So this is where you can actually go through and fill out all your administrative information. So we've got all our general information here. So description of the DP, the name, the zone number, your surveyor's company, so whatever company you work for, your reference, and then what type of survey it is. Coordinate system information. And then it'll have any annotations, so you can actually put extra plan notes in here. Purpose of the survey. And you can just click on insert line below or above, and that inserts a new line. So use these icons on the right here to insert a new line. You can insert an administrative date, the personnel who did the job and the registration number, any extra field notes. So for example, if you're measuring occupations, you could type in where those occupations were measured between, if from corner or middle of the post somewhere. You could actually put those as a field note in here. And your administrative areas are set in here too. But just type in, left click and type in. Now, the next panel here we'll go through is the info panel. This is sort of like the tree, but this is purely just for, it's like a string inquire without left clicking. So as I move my cursor, it just automatically selects the nearest point. So you can see here 41. If I move away, it will go to 31, then down to 28. So it's just a quick way of getting an inquire, and you can actually change the information in here too. Now, next option after the info panel is the validator. So 12D will have an inbuilt validator in here. At the moment, it's not implemented, but basically what it will do is you can actually run the checks of all your data, and it will run the checks against the LPI's XML schema, and it will flag any errors that you can fix in 12D before you send it off to the LPI. Once you've done that, you've checked the validator. The last step is to export the XML file. So in here, if we go export XML, we could type a name. We could just call it 12D ePlan. Click right. Just place that. So file written, it's written out the file. Now, if I want to open that up, we can click on 12D ePlan and open that file up. Again, it opens it up in Internet Explorer. Now this time, you can actually see the version and the software vendor that created this XML file. So you can see it was actually created in 12D model, and it even has the version of 12D model that I'm using. And again, I have all the coordinate information, all your coordinate geometry point, metadata, parcel information, so it's all there. If we scroll down, we've got our administrative information here. So it looks similar to the one that we've just imported in. It has all that information there, and this is created straight out of 12D model. And all our observation information. So our bearings and distances for each of the lines. Any monument information is down the bottom. Now, last but not least, we can extract the points out. So this option lets you take this ePlan survey network model and basically makes a copy of it and converts it to superstrings. So that way then you can upload it with the survey instruments, you can use it for drafting, you have all that information there. Now, once you're happy with this, we can finish this ePlan editor taskbar by clicking Save and Finish. And that's saved and finished all our data. Now your final step essentially is just to grab that XML file and basically go to the LPI's website, and then you can sign in and submit the XML file, and it will run some internal checks and creates a TIFF file, and that's pretty much it. That's the process. So that should save you guys registration time and make you more efficient. So I'll just quickly go through the rest of this slide. This pretty much just explains everything that I've gone through. So all the survey header information, the validator, and then exporting it in the LPI's website where you can go and log on. That might have changed though. I know sometimes that they update it, so and that's it. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to contact me at support@exds.com.au, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the ePlan module inside a 12D model. And that concludes my presentation, so thank you for listening.
Thanks, Mark. I think we won't try and run live Q&A with this internet speed today, so anyone who's asked questions will just get back to you by email instead, and thank you very much for listening. The recording of this webinar will be available in coming days through our website and our YouTube channel. We've got plenty more great webinar topics lined up in coming weeks, and we'll keep updating the website with more topics as they're set, and also keep you posted through email and social media, so do stay tuned. Thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you at future webinars.